Hi, everybody, and welcome to the third in our Engaging All Learners in the Middle Years series. Our themes this year are student voice, literacy, and numeracy. This is session 3. You made it to session 3. I realize a lot of folks are going to watch the recording, but I'm just going to pretend you're live right now. Vicki and I will be connecting back to the themes from the previous sessions, but we're also going to offer you some things from our practice that we're really excited and passionate about and really foundational to who we are as literacy educators. My name is Leyton Schnellert, and not only am I your host, but I'm also presenting this time. How exciting. And I feel just so grateful to be presenting with Vicki Roberts. We have been literacy soul sisters for much of our careers. And I remember connecting and meeting and presenting together when BC Tela held our conference in Saanich, maybe that year, or Souk. This session is co-presented by the Rural Education Advisory, the Greater Victoria School District. We have support from the Ministry of Education, as well as the Edith Landau Virtual Learning Center. And I should also celebrate that BC Teachers of Language Arts are also co-sponsoring this year as well. UBC is located on the traditional ancestral unceded territory of the Squamish, Tsleil-Waututh, and Musqueam peoples. And as the series is co-hosted by the University of British Columbia, we locate ourselves and recognize our relationship with the Musqueam people, and that we're in an ongoing process, each of us individually and as an institution, of decolonization and recognizing our responsibility in truth and reconciliation, not just personally, but also organizationally, around creating pathways that are more equitable for all learners. Today, I am personally on Coquitlam territory and I'm sitting in the magnificent Hillcrest Middle School, where I got to spend the day with a lot of very excited grade 6, 7s, and 8s who are trying to get golf balls into cups in a fantastic STEM activity, self-assessing using learning intentions. So I'm living it today, everybody. Also, one student came into the Zen Den where I had 36 teacher candidates all crammed in, and he came to Zen out and he left. He's like, this does not feel Zen. Why are all these people in the Zen Den? So I'm going to talk a little bit about literacy foundations, and I am just going to make sure that I stay in my time so I don't overtake Vicki's time. But I'm going to give you a little foundational piece at the beginning, folks. Then Vicki's going to be the meat in the middle, and then I'm going to give you some quick little strategies at the end. If you make it till the end, you'll get some quick strategies. Hashtag, you're welcome. Okay. Folks, this is all the humor I have, so just kind of work with it, and it's the end of the day. So what do we know about key elements for engaging learners? This has been foundational for our series. One is that we want to work from what we learn about our students, from our students, in a way that identifies or figures out their strengths. We want to be finding out what their strengths and their passions are, but also seeing where are some areas we can focus. And so in the middle years, we're very committed to focusing our teachers to match the learners we have, versus saying, I'm supposed to do this and I hope they get it. We are constantly designing our instruction and our teaching with our kids, for our kids, with a focus on strength first. They are very interested in WWE wrestling. I'm going to work that in somehow, even though I may not know much about it right now. But we know that's foundational to affirming teaching that helps our middle years learners grow and develop. A second thing that we know is super important in terms of the work that we do is that we need to create opportunities where we activate student prior knowledge, where we find out and give them an opportunity to connect to what's going on, rather than here's the topic, let me teach it to you. It's always like, what do you already know about this? What do you think this is hinting at? What is the deal here? Or my favorite is, what have we been learning about and what's been important so far? And I'll make a mind map or a splash or help them get their ideas out somewhere. But I always start from, what are you bringing? What are you thinking? What are you wondering? And I build from there. That facilitates engagement, where I'm starting from what students bring. I acknowledge what students bring, and then I let them know I'm building from what they bring. With me so far? This could be 5 minutes, this could be 7 minutes, or sometimes when we really get rolling, it's 20 minutes. And I'm cool with that, because if we access our prior knowledge, we're connecting to what we already know, and then we're building from there. And that's how deeper learning happens, is by building from, connecting to, and sometimes realizing that what we used to know is changing to something newer. I hope my pace is okay, everybody, but I'm bringing the joy regardless. All right. Now, we also know that kids need an opportunity, and we're really focusing on literacy here, everybody, but all kinds of learning, which is like students need an opportunity to process or work with new ideas where they get to make meaning. So it's not just taking meaning or being told something, but they're interacting with ideas somehow. One of my favorite, easiest strategies is like, what are 3 important ideas here? Or what's the author trying to tell us? Or what's the message here? Or what are different perspectives on this? But I want students to wrestle with and come up with ideas. Hey, Sean, I want students to be able to say, what's here, what's important? And that's active meaning making. I'm working with a text, but I want them to interact with the text. Find something important. What's a cool idea? What's a question you have? But receiving information for the middle years learner is not as engaging as working with information. Don't get me wrong, a good story goes a long way. Let me tell you about the owl in my tree can be a real hook. But then I want them to work with, well, what do we know about owls, and what can we find out? What birds do you know? Get out, they can turn their heads around backwards. It's like a horror movie that your parents used to watch, actually probably your grandparents if they're my age. But that process of activating prior knowledge is so important, but also giving kids opportunities to work with ideas and come up with their ideas and connect to ideas is what we know helps with engagement and meaningful learning. All right, here I go. Sean, I'm on a tear today. I'm just telling all the stories. Now you can edit out if you'd like, everyone. We do know that students also, to have meaningful, engaged ongoing learning, or where they take away understanding, students need an opportunity to personalize what they've learned about, or take what they've been learning about and transform it in some way. I'm not saying you need to do this every lesson, everybody, but I would say at a minimum every week, it's kind of like, people, what's been important? What have you learned here? And how can you show that in some way? And research suggests if students can show us in a way that's not the same way as they've received it, then they've received and engaged in deeper learning, or what we might call synthesis. So making a concept map, or a mind map, or a comic strip conversation, or something out of Play-Doh, or a tableau, whatever it is, we do know students need some opportunity to personalize or transform info. If you're doing this, trying to do this every day or every lesson, then they're probably smaller things, right? An exit slip, a drawing on a Post-it, a sketch, a web, but just the chance to take the information and make it their own. My personal favorite, everybody, is to create your own scenario. Based on what we've been learning about, what's a little snippet of a story, or a beginning of something you could tell, or a solution to a problem, or posing the beginning of a case study. I love a student-written case study in social studies, everybody. Okay, and then lastly, I just want to highlight from this research around middle years engagement is that we need to create opportunities for students to self-assess themselves. How am I doing? To set some goals. What do I want to work on? And then to see how am I doing with my goals. Some of you have heard me talk about this before, everyone. Is like Core Competency Friday. Like on Fridays, what have I learned? How did I do? What's my evidence? But also, what do I want to still work on? And so by doing that, it creates ownership for kids inside of themselves. It's not about me setting goals for them. It's about them setting goals for themselves. But the flip side of that is, if you have learning intentions for the week that you've been working on, the Friday self-assessment can be related to those learning intentions, right? So then it's not mystery learning. It's kind of like, what did I learn related to this? And so that's the kind of work that we're trying to do. Are you with me so far? Is anyone still awake? People, Sean, are you still there? Yes, Sean, can you hear me? There's a song in there. All right. There's a song in everything. I'm going to sneak my way over to the next slide, folks. So here's an example of a learning sequence flow where I said, what am I working on? Maybe I framed it as a question, but I do try to figure out what are my learning intentions. Students will be able to do what? And I frame that in I can language or we can language, but then I build my flow, which could be a lesson. It could be over 2 days where there's an opportunity to activate prior knowledge. There's an opportunity to make meaning and come up with your own ideas related to new learning or text, and a chance to show or apply what I've learned. And so that kind of a sequence might happen over 2 days, or if I really get into it with my students, it might happen over 3 or 4 days. I have been known to take an entire class just to activate prior knowledge. All right, I'm going to close my section, Peeps in the House, with just a few literacy specific things that come right from the research that I hope are both affirming, but also, what can I call it, Alexia? Renewing? Good reminders, maybe help us think about what do we need to pay attention. So across research in middle years literacy, we recognize that students need more opportunities to read, discuss, and explore. So you might call that bigger chunks of time, but you're kind of thinking about building over time, and that the majority of the time should be students in conversation or students trying things and not us talking to them or at them, but giving kids like, let's look at this, let's have a conversation, talk to your partner, what are you thinking? There is a process or a practice for us though, as the teacher, to really model what thoughtful literacy looks like, right? To like, what does that look like? What's an example? We have to not ask kids to do things that we ourselves have not modeled first. Does that make sense? If you want to focus on question making, model asking questions. If you want to focus finding the big idea, if you want to ask them to write something, you better be writing in front of them, right? Like with mistakes. Mr. Schnellert, your spelling's terrible. I'm like, I'm working on it. I'm still working on it. And that really moves us away from kind of that power dynamic where like we tell kids to what to do. We're like, we're all writers, we're all readers, and we're building our practice together. I'm not subtle, friends. That's the beauty of a webinar. I just put it out there. Vicki's like, he's quite direct today. Indeed, I am. Here we go. So this comes from The Power and Promise of Real Louds and Independent Reading from Middle Years Research. It's an International Literacy Association position paper. And so what they're encouraging us to do, which is stuff that we know, it's good to reground ourselves, is that we need to build in classroom time where kids get to self-select and read a large number of books, a variety of texts. You can see Vicki's classroom library is right behind her in her bookshelves. But I want to create opportunities where kids get to choose something to read, where there's something that's interesting and meaningful for them, right? I really want them to, and that does not need to be a novel, everybody. Information books are hot, just saying. In fact, if I look in my little bag beside me, today's or this weekend's favorite purchase is 100 Things to Do in the Forest. And so during quiet or engaged reading time, they might read 1 or 2 of these pages and really think about it in terms of what's going on, but they've chosen it because they're interested. I do want to make sure that in my independent oriented reading time, I also have done some work around why do we read? What do we do during this time? And how do readers read? And so I know in the first session, Melissa talked about this a little bit, and Janice. So go back to webinar 1 if you're interested in seeing that. And then the other thing is we do need to be engaged with our learners during that independent reading time. So if you've got dear time or engaged reading time or 10 minutes, I do want to make sure that I'm doing something where I'm conferencing with kids during that time, or I'm checking in or having them set a goal or talking about a book choice that might be meaningful to them. But I'm not just coming in and kids are just reading or reading time, and I'm engaged with them in their reading in some way. I want to have authentic conversation. What are you reading? Tell me what's going on. What's important? And then my favorite people, if you have time, come together in a circle and 3 kids share something from their books. And if you're a little short on time, have a partner say, here's something I read. Here's something I'd learned, and get ready for it. Here's who I would recommend this book to. It's amazing how many people plan to recommend books to their grandparents. Like so many. Am I yelling? I'm sorry, I'll bring it down. I'm just so excited. Okay, and then a few strategies that link reading to engagement. That's our theme of the series, right? So how can we link engagement in reading to this idea of kids having choice and choosing what they're reading and having. One of the things that we do know also about like this choice or more independent reading time is kids will more likely read something that's accessible to them, that they're interested in. It's really hard for everybody to engage in the same thing at the same time. And so having this opportunity to read something, you're more engaged because you chose it. So little kind of strategies you might, like something like book tastings, which is like, choose a book, read it, say what do you like about it, pass the book around, and after we tasted 6 or 7 books, which was your favorite? Which do you want to go into further? Or speed dating with a book, where you're like, read a page, try another one, read a page, try another one, read a page. Just that chance to see what you got. With me, friends, I've seen some pretty good book tastings in my time. Also, some kind of like display around new book arrivals. You'd be like, would that be in the Learning Commons? Of course it would be. Would that be in my classroom? Of course it would be. People, I got a book this weekend. I got it in New Westminster. I found it. I was so excited. I'm totally into hiking. This is my book. Also highly recommended is kids and yourself choosing a golden lines from a book they're reading. So each week, somebody is responsible for putting a golden line in the display area to kind of sell that text. Here's a cool book. There's the also idea of student book ladders, which is kind of like, I read this book and it led me to this book and then it led me to that book. And so it's a chance to talk about, I like this series, or here's someone I go. But that also allows us to have conversations with kids around what's another thing you want to read. And if they're not sure, you're like, well, what have you been reading? What can we add to your ladder that might be interesting? My only request is that we don't expect all kids to have the same number of rungs on their ladders. Does that make sense? A ladder does not need to have 10 things. A ladder has, what's your next thing on your ladder? What's your reading ladder? I also love this, people. Oh, Vicki, you're in Victoria area. Victoria has the highest number of books proportionally in Canada with marginal notes written in them. Isn't that a cool fact? So I'm not asking your kids to write directly into their books, but wouldn't it be really cool if they left some highlights or a post in a book like, check this out, you might like this book if, there you go. And so that also helps kids not just choose a book, but feel like they're connected to other readers of those books. You might post about a book if you have a classroom blog, or have like a featured book of the week. Or if you're using Padlet, kids can add a sticky note to the class Padlet about a book they read that they recommend. And then this one has been so exciting in classrooms I've seen this in, where they actually plan and they make a storyboard and they might record a video to convince somebody to read that book. You'll like this book if. And you're like, I don't use a lot of technology, Leyton. Well, students are pretty good at it. But the flip side could be, you don't have to do it with a video. You could do it live. You could do a live commercial for your book. All right, people in the house. Those are just a few examples of engaging strategies in terms of what you have, what you can do, and how we think about literacy in the middle years as centrally about engagement. There's an incredible teaching piece that I'll come back in the third chunk to talk about some strategies, but at the heart, it's how are we fostering passionate readers through engagement with books and engagement in, if you think about your classroom library or how you're connecting with the Learning Commons, we're making sure that the perspectives, the voices, the identities of the kids in the books or the characters in the books are diverse so that students can see themselves in books, but they can also be introduced to other experiences they may not have had otherwise. Whoo, I really got excited there. Sometimes that happens. I'm wondering if you would be open in the chat box, that's French for the chat box, and just offer in some book that's been hot in your context. Kids are into it, reading it, maybe it's a book you love, but what's a book that we should all be aware of that's something that is just, kids are into it, excited about it, interested, or maybe it's a book that just made a connection with one kid, because you know that's what you want to do is match a kid to a book. Here they come, look in the chat box. Remember, the book may not be fiction, the book might be nonfiction. Here they come. Look at these books. Yes. I will say that one of the most successful books that I've had in my classroom library in grade 6 is called Holes. It's still a hit. Thanks, Rachel. Yes. Anybody using Robin Will Kimmerer and Monique Grace Smith's adapted version, the youth version of, let's see if it shows up in the chat box. Braiding Sweetgrass, which has been so incredible because they're only like 3 or 4 page excerpts, right, Vicki? If you hold that open, so you can see that you can do a little excerpt from that book and look at the images and the connection, but written for youth. Oh, Karen, that is so amazing, right? We're like, look at all of these books with different voices and different contexts. All right, friends, so exciting to be here together with you. And I think you can also see from the chat box, isn't it exciting when you brainstorm with other educators about books? If we ourselves try to do this all by ourselves, we're literally going to do our best. But when we connect with other teachers, the Learning Commons teacher, support teachers around, what are some books or some things that are accessible? Suddenly, we've got more ideas and more pathways to kids. Okay, any other last books you want to put in the chat for me? This is your chance. Books that are a hit. Ooh, The Poet X. Look, Vicki's looking on her shelf. Okay, I got one more to show you right now. Oops. Though my showing is not great. This is Nature All Around Trees. And so what I love about having in my classroom library connection are information books where kids can just spend time with a couple pages, engaging, noticing, looking, making connections. I want to make sure. Oh, thanks, Vicki. Ooh, thanks, Jeanette. Hey, Jeanette. I'll type mine in the chat box. And Nature All Around Trees. Yes. Okay, friends, thank you for joining me in our opening. Oh, people are into it. Thank you for joining me for this opening session where we reviewed important ideas and concepts related to student engagement, literacy engagement, and the idea that we want to make space in kids' lives for them to be reading books, fiction and nonfiction, that they choose in the time that we have built into the day in ways that aren't just send them off to read, but there's engaged reading, meaning that they share with a partner or they conference with us at the end, just to have that kind of social aspect of reading. So the independent part is, I chose this, I'm reading it. The social part is, here's something I noticed, here's what's great about it, here's who I would advertise it for, here's my recommendation. And the two together, oh, look at that. Individual and social, that sounds like maybe book reading and independent literacy time might be social emotional learning. Hashtag I made that connection. Okay, people, thanks for starting out with me. I just am looking for a couple more book recommendations in this chat box. Come on, people, get it out. One more book. More book. And by me, I mean each other. I see The Marrow Thieves, I think Among the Hidden, I see Babysitter's Club, I see Flamer. You can do it, give me one more. Flight of the Hummingbird, thanks, Jeanette. Stick Boy. All right. It is, oh, thanks, Tammy. Tammy, we were just talking, oh, yes, now we're coming. Now we're getting there. The Barren Ground series, so engaging. as you work your way through the background series, I find you just get more connected and more connected and more connected. I do want to highlight the fact that there are some series in here. Series are really important for kids to build their reading muscles and feel comfortable in a series and go. And then the ladder is like, where do you ladder after that series? If you like this, you might like that. If you like books about this, you might like that. All right. I have to stop sharing, but you can see I get very excited. I am super delighted that Vicki Roberts is joining us today to co-present. In the very first webinar for this series 4 years ago, Vicki and I presented together, and Vicki presented some powerful work about upstanders engaging with her class in ways that help them think about how do we engage in the world, building off Sarah K. Ahmed's work, whose new book is called Be the Change. Vicki's going to talk to us now a little bit about writing. And Vicki, we're just so happy you're hearing it. I know you're going to do a bit of a self-introduction, but may I just say that it doesn't matter what role you're in, classroom, team leader, vice principal, district vice principal, now you're a principal of a middle school, that the fact that you are in classrooms as much as you can speaks to your commitment to engaging with kids, engaging with learners, and finding the energy in that work. So I pass to Vicki. Thanks, everybody. And just a reminder, I'm coming back for the last chunk for some quick, fun, accessible strategies. Over to you, Vicki.
Thank you so much. Hello, everybody, and thank you, Leyton. I feel like I can't. Oh, am I? Okay, good. I have to say before we move on, as you can see, as Leyton just said, I am a principal at a middle school, and you can see I have this big library behind me that I lend to students. They come and visit and they sign up and so forth. But this stack right here, this tallest one, this is the Troy Recommends stack, and there's a student who visits me every single day and borrows a book. He's a graphic novel fan and comes in the morning, has the book for the day, and comes back at the end, and we talk about what he loved about it or what it was, who he's going to recommend it to. So when folks come in, then I'm like, oh, you can take one out of the Troy Recommends pile, and it's become a big thing. So yeah, they love it. They love the ownership of recommending to others and thinking about who would enjoy this book. So can't not jump in on a little bit of book talk. I'm just gonna share my screen, and somebody give me a thumbs up that you can see that okay. If it's coming, and it's coming, yay, there we go, perfect. I am going to as well. Are we, so do I guess I need to, do I have to change the view so that, or
Nope,
what do you guys see?
Yeah.
Okay, we're good. Okay, I'm just going to make my view good. Okay, so as Leyton mentioned, I'm going to talk a little bit more within the realm of writing and representing and communicating in the world of literacy. And there's some of my information. You can follow along. And Roberts Reads is really more about reading and reviewing great books, but sharing lesson ideas as well. And today I just want to acknowledge that I'm coming to you from the Esquimalt Songhees Nations, where we live, learn, do our work, and I get to really feel honored about a career that helps me learn constantly, learn about others, and learn about the land that we're on. And that's here in Greater Victoria. So first, I promised Leyton I wasn't going to go through each of these because that would take the whole time I have, although I am French Canadian, and therefore I can sit around and tell you a lot about all of these things, and we could sit around a kitchen table and talk. But this is a little bit about me, and I'll focus on the pieces. You can look at all the things that are there, but really I have been an educator since 2000 and what was it? 2004 I graduated, and I started in elementary, K1, moved to middle school where I was for 12 or 10 years as a teacher, and then went on to become middle school vice principal, then a high school vice principal, a district vice principal for a little second with Tammy Renyard, who's in here, and Sean Powell. And then this September, I came here to Glanford Middle School, which is a wonderful middle school here in Victoria. And as Leyton mentioned, while I have a fire hose in my face of being a brand new principal, I spend as much time as possible in classes, co-teaching, sharing learning. I have a lit circle group every week that I meet with, and that's a really important part of who I am. And all things literacy bring me incredible joy, and love thinking about that K-12 lens, which I'm very grateful that I've got to have. So for our session together today, we are going to do a few things, one of which is that we're going to be working on developing an understanding of a supported writing community where all students hopefully see themselves as writers, and that's the big deal. It's what the goal is, that all of our students feel that they are able, that they're excited, and that they know that all the writing that they do is valued in the writing and representing world. Developer understanding that writing is a means to develop student voice, where students see themselves as relevant, purposeful, and authentic. And consider ways to embed more writing into every day to support your writing practice. And I promise through this, I'm going to share through story, and I'm going to do that because I really do believe, as I said in the slide before, that we learn through story. It's an incredible way to understand others, but also to connect. I know that through the journey I'm going to share as an educator, so there will be moments where you're like, yep, I get that. And so I want to share the story of my journey and my students' journey, and how we developed and how I have grown to understand writing and representing in a bigger picture. And you will get some sample lessons that you can take away. And I'm going to attempt to make this as smooth as possible, but fortunately there's people to help with that. So I'm going to invite everybody to jump in the chat. We're going to do a little collaborative share, just get our thinking going about, like I said, what are your connections and experiences? What words come to mind when you think of teaching writing, and don't just do one, dump them all in there. And or what words come to mind when you think of student engagement in writing instruction or literacy experiences? I want the good, the bad, and the ugly. Put it all in there. What have you got? And I'll say go. Oh, sorry. Yeah. So I'm seeing partner writing, collaborative exploration, traits, choice, engagement, low floor, high ceiling, collaborative. I love that imagination. Formulate, that's okay. Remember I said, put it all in there. Dave Shortreed. Dave Shortreed says sentence starters. Oh my goodness, I didn't know Dave Shortreed was here. This is exciting. Prompts. This is great. Creative writing, keeping going, dress ups, inspiration, stamina. Role models, feedback, great. Self-reflection, just a couple more. Oh, thank you, Angela. Audience. Okay. So on that, it was a number of years ago, and I was, like I said, it was when I was in my middle years teaching. I had a grade 7 class. It was a really every year was a great group and different. They're all different and dynamic in their own ways. They develop a little culture of that class community, which we all grow to love very quickly. Just gonna see, go ahead. Now why won't my slide go? There we go. Sorry. I was, teaching all the things. I was teaching most subjects in my grade 7 class at the time. And I really was feeling like the writing instruction was kind of daunting. It was one of the subjects that I wasn't most excited about teaching, even though I loved literacy and all things literacy, but there wasn't a real spark. Students were writing mostly for me. It was, writing was about compliance. I was giving a task, they were writing. I would say, imagine you're writing for this group or this person, but really they knew it was for me. We were having ongoing success. The students were developing their skills, but there wasn't spark. It wasn't alive. And then at that time I was doing my master's, and I was, doing lit reviews and all of those expository type, mastery type writing experiences that you have. But then I also had the opportunity where we started to do blogging and communicating and collaborative rights. And I was getting all of a sudden to use different media and images and video, and along with words and text and so forth, to share what I understood, what I knew, what I was curious about. And my whole world literally opened up for me in that moment. And I understood, it makes sense that I need to do lit reviews. I get that. It makes sense that I have to write some papers that are more expository. I get that. But all of a sudden, my world was opened up to this other form of writing and communicating, where I got to share in multiple ways and in multimedia experiences and in a new literacy lens, literally within a new literacy lens for me, but within the world of new literacies. And what it made me realize is, like, I am my students right now. Like, I was doing the formal thing that I had to do for my profs, but then my world opened up. And so that became a really big moment for me that I wanted to share. I wanted my students to have that same experience, to come alive and be rich and see communicating in a bigger way. And so I had this really rich reading community in our class, doing many of the things that Leyton was just talking about, with these wonderful literacy reading experiences and a wonderful culture. But why couldn't I do the same thing with my writing community? And so within that lens, the key lessons that I was doing for our reading community, I started to draw into our writing community, so that all of our students would see value within their writing and representing and communicating. You see there's a link there, and that's the link. You'll get a link to the lessons. But what that meant was there was 4 key important questions that started: what do we write? Why do we write? How do we write? And who am I as a writer? And Leyton mentioned that way back 4 years ago, 4 years ago almost, we did the first session, and a lot of that was the exploration of understanding and pulling purposeful work and identity understanding, and helping our students understand who they were, but not only as people, but who are they as writers and readers and communicators and thinkers and learners, and all of these pieces, and bringing that in explicitly. So we'll just take a little moment and once again pop back into the chat. I want you to think about yourself in a day, think about yourself over time, think about what you experience in the writing world. What are examples of things that we write? And if you don't write essays, that's okay, but you know that people write them. So you can put in all kinds of examples. What are things that people write? Love it. Tweets. Oh, love notes. Angela, you're my kindred spirit. Lists, yep, many lists. Thank you cards. Blog posts, yeah. Signs, report cards, this is true. Lessons, yes. Instructions, yep. Cards. Think big and wide. Shopping lists, articles for journals, yep. Instructions, how to do's, proposals, presentations. Take just a couple more. Notes to families. Sticky notes. My office is filled with sticky notes. Yeah, books. Yes, of course. And so one of the key pieces began with that thinking about what my wish was for students to see the wider picture of writing beyond the walls of a classroom and beyond the experiences within school. And so doing that simple lesson of why do we write is like it takes almost nothing to prep. It could just take a whiteboard and a marker, really, and some partner talk and thinking and brainstorming every single time. And I'll put it here. Here are now, and I joked with Leyton before, I could have put up all the pretty, lovely posters that these things turn into, but I put in the messy examples as well to share that this is the real. Every single time I've done this lesson, and I've done it multiple times with my own classes. I've gone in and done it with classes that I don't have any big connection to, in workshops, and classroom teachers throughout our school and other schools I've worked in have done these lessons. And every single time, hands down, without a doubt, students come up with so many more things than I had ever imagined. They build on new ideas every time that I didn't even think of. And once they get going, they're riffing off each other because they're like, wait, that's right. And it comes up with another idea and another idea and another idea. You can see in this class here, they had titles, dates, texts, art, recipes, receipts, blueprints. They start getting into other disciplines and other subject areas, which is fantastic. Notes, songs, lyrics, poetry, scripts, comments. We talk about how they're writing texts and so forth. Now, when they're going, and I'll always be like, okay, we have to come back to it. And this list always becomes a living document. It goes on a chart and it gets added to and added to and added to throughout the year and over time, because hands down, they're always like, oh, wait, I thought of something else. And they add more onto it as they start thinking about the wider picture of writing and representing. And after this moment, when they've done all these things, I always ask, so hands up if you've written something, if you write any of these types of things. And of course, every hand goes up almost always, and then say, look at that. We're all writers. We're all writing the things. We're writing all kinds of things, because so often they're like, oh, I don't write. Well, sure you do. We're doing all kinds of things. We also move on to why do we write, and that one. And I will just say this, I've learned to always start with what is far more concrete for them. It's easy for them to build up ideas. And from there, next lesson, next day, so forth, you can get into the why. And when they see this, when they have the what up there, it helps them start expanding their thinking about the why. I've done it both ways, and I just always find more success with the what first. It's tangible, it's easy, and they can really build off each other in quick, easy ways. And then you can really then go into what do writers do? So you're thinking about writers' moves. What kind of moves are they making? What are they doing? What are skills that they use? How do they use them? And then go on into the writer identity. And really that writer identity piece, that then becomes something that they reflect on, come back to, build on as their skills and their understanding develop throughout the month or year, whatever it is. They can goal set from there. They identify what they're doing well. They start seeing themselves in a bigger picture. And so I wouldn't suggest leaving that part out, because it's really critical for them to understand themselves and what they do well and what they want to work on. This is building in that agency and that authenticity. If we have time, we'll jump in for questions, but if you do have a question, you can throw it into the chat as well. Oh, we did that. And so really what happens here is we get to start helping to build out that understanding with our students. And we're no longer thinking about, well, I'm writing a paragraph for my teacher, or I'm writing, a story, which is all great, but there's more to it than that. And that's what we want to help them understand. We help them understand when we're looking at all of these examples that writing is actually representing. It's a form of communication, which we get and we know, but this is where we have to make this explicit, and they're exploring this. And writing is thinking. When we're writing, when we're representing, when we're sketching, when we're drawing, we're getting all these wonderful ideas out from our mind onto paper, onto, a screen, whatever it is. And I will say that this quote here about writing is from Ruth Ayres' Enticing Hard to Reach Writers, which is a book, as you can tell by my 1,000 sticky notes, that I love with all of my heart. It's professional read, but there's also her storyline through here. And it actually, I'm not going to lie, I shed some tears at the end, because she shares the journey of a student. And it really looks at tons of practical ways to get those reluctant readers opening their mind, or writers, sorry. So I really do recommend that book. So just getting to the anchor chart that changed it all, really, because once we started blowing out these things and ideas and building this with students and understanding, like, look at all these things we write. Okay, but why do we write them? When are we writing them? We started to realize that we're really writing, there's a purpose. And it's not just me. It's not just because you have to learn this. And then within that, there's always an audience. And I know that these things we know as educators, but once again, I can't say this enough, helping our students to explicitly get this is critical. And then once you know that, once you know what your purpose is, your audience is, then you can start choosing, well, how am I going to choose to communicate this in a way that makes sense? And I always give this example, I would use with my students. If I have a really great story to share, something that happened in my day that I just had to share with my best friend, Shauna, and I would sit down and think, okay, oh my gosh, this story is so good, so good, so good. So how am I going to tell her? Am I going to send her an email? No way, that's super boring. And like, she doesn't want to sit and read an email. That's more formal. I could write a text, but really this is too big for text. Maybe I could give her a call, but I don't know, because I actually need to see her face. I'm showing up on her doorstep. I'm going to tell her the story. I'm going to see the reaction. And sharing that experience of going through that journey is exactly what we do and how we choose to communicate when we're writing and representing. And it helps them understand that. So when we help our students stop and understand, okay, what is it that I need to communicate? Who am I communicating it to? And what is the best way to do this? And the best way might involve, graphically or visually, what is the best way? But best way also includes who the audience is. Can they read text? Do I need to do it voice to text? Do I need to create a message? Do I need to be really formal and use my formal voice for this audience? So all of those pieces become much more meaningful. And this is where we're able to start adding in the choice with purpose, not just for the sake of choice and free for all. It's very purposeful. The other thing I wanted to say that completely transformed is that as we started developing this understanding, is that students now, when we got into expository writing, they were like, oh, wait, I get it. This is why I need to know how to write in a more formal way because of this, this, and this. And this is when I probably would use this. They would start asking, hang on, Ms. Roberts, I actually think I need to do, write this letter. It's probably kind of formal. I'm going to use some of these skills, or I'm going to use this form. Whether if they were sharing their passions or blogging or whatever it was, it all had more meaning because they were asking themselves some critical questions. So within that, we were sort of fast forwarding. Does anyone have anything? I don't know. I have zero idea where I'm at time. It could be dinner time for all I know. How we do?
5 more glorious minutes.
5 more glorious minutes. Okay, well then I'm just going to roll along because 5 minutes is going to go by fast, but we can ask questions after if we have time. What I do want to say is that once the students started to get all of those pieces and see themselves that they had choice, and every time that we explicitly worked on a style, a genre, or a skill, it now fit within the bigger picture. And they now added that into their toolbox of writing and representing and communicating skills and strategies, ways, and they could think about it in a way that made sense beyond the 4 walls of our classroom. And they were able to share some of that writing and representing and communicating beyond the 4 walls of our classroom. Within that, though, we also talked about, and I also, used ways that we were actually writing a lot more, and they became more keen and excited. So super quickly, because now I have 4 minutes, in the chat, quick, pop some thoughts. What are simple ways that you can get students writing and representing more every single day? Yes, fan fiction. Sentence strips, cue cards, that's great. And using those sticky notes, like Leyton was saying, like a little sticky note review in the cover of a book is like a treasure to find for another student. Quick writes, yes. Quick writes are literally like, I think I could just live on quick writes in a classroom. Tammy, I love doing quick writes. Oops, sorry. Seeing that I already advanced the slide, I'll go to it. Here, these are many things that you've already put in there. Quick writes, notes, sketches, supported predictions. I am like pretty obsessed with supported predictions. Getting them to think, use evidence, tell us why. How the heck did you come up with that? That's awesome. Read aloud responses, letters to friends, collaborative writes with classmates, asking questions, tickets out the door, headlines, captions. I love using, okay, so you just read this. What would the newspaper caption be? What would the newspaper headline be? Writing tweets, IGs, etc. Sketching, writing, and just, I really encourage that any time to just get them to do more writing and representing embedded throughout in their math and so forth. I love like those students who came up with ideas about in different subject areas, helping make that connection for them. Like, yes, look at you, you're writing, representing, and thinking in math in all these ways. It's really important to say it out loud and name it every time. And I do just want to say I am like also a super mega fan of, well, if I can get them to come up, quick writes and journals. Just a few other things. If you're not using them, I really suggest you do. They can be accessible for all students because you can write, draw, sketch. You can start with one word, a list, a web, move on from there. They really promote sustained writing and writing fluency, building that writing muscle. Leyton was talking about sustained reading, and I always think about reading muscle, and I go through it as well. Sometimes I can't write or read for as long, and it's because my muscle's tired, and you have to build it back up. Provides another opportunity for students to write in the day. It's informal. It prepares students for more formal writing later. And I will always say, I have to tell a teeny funny story. One year I was doing a similar presentation and talking about journals, and my son's teacher was in the session. And the next day he came home and he was like, "Oh, I just want to say thank you." And I said, "Oh, what's that?" And he said, "Well, our teacher said that she was in a session and learned from you, and she's no longer going to mark our journals." And I was like, awesome. So, because we talked about the part that journal writing is for expression and for ongoing skill development. And I guess I was talking lots about how I don't mark journals. I look at them and probably have conversations with students. But anyways, it was kind of funny. He was like, "Thanks, Mom." Developing ideas, there's choice, there's all kinds of wonderful things, critical thinking, low stress, and it can be, as I just mentioned, a formative assessment without grading, marking, and all those things, not putting it on a proficiency scale or any other thing other than ongoing formative discussion. Look at this, how are you working? And it can be a feed forward tool. So just gonna wrap up a little bit. We know that writing can be hard for students and it takes time, focus, and practice, but we do know that when students have some choice in a purposeful way, that they're more engaged, and we have to provide lots of opportunities for them to generate ideas and topics and build criteria. That's a whole other session about criteria building, crafting, sharing. And then once again, using that goal-oriented feedback, what I like to say, feed forward, because it's them thinking about what they can do next. And just final reflections. When our students really see that they have all the forms of writing and representing as valuable, when they're out of school, I hadn't even gotten into this part, but when we value all of the writing that they're doing outside of school, because they're doing all kinds of things. When we place value on that and honor that and invite them to include that into their in-school writing lives as well, in blogging and digital platforms, they're feeling valued and their world is represented in their classrooms. I remember one time we were doing some digital based writing and one of the kids is like, one second here, why am I doing this here? And I'm like, because it's really cool work. And he was like, "Oh, okay, so I get to do my," like, if he was writing a blog about skateboarding, I get to write about that here. Yeah, you do. And so it's a big deal for them. And once again, always encouraging, what is the purpose, who is your audience, and what is the best way to communicate? Those three simple things literally can change the world in your writing classroom. I basically went over that. I did say single points rubrics are your best friends. And these are 4 books that I love with all my heart and soul. And there are many, 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 many more, but these are ones that I come back to nonstop. And we can share those with you. And yeah, I just think that this all doesn't have to be something that starts in September. I would encourage everybody to think about building out. You can do the simple ideas about getting students thinking about all the writing and representing that happens in the world out there, and encourage new ways of, in the work that you're doing right now, to think about how can I expand it and help them see that they can represent and communicate in new ways. Doesn't have to be a big deal. So thank you so much. That was a lot of talking. I don't know if you have any questions or where our time is at, Leyton, or if we want to send them to, I don't know. But now back to you.
That was great, Vicki. Thank you. I'm going to pick up for this last little piece with just a few practical strategies you can take. I will say one of my favorites, Vicki, is In the Middle by Nancy Atwell.
Oh, yeah.
Always been like a central writing workshop text for me.
Got it.
In the Middle. And she also has another resource called Lessons That Change Writers, which I just love. There it is, because it's for mini lessons. It's for mini lessons. And so I just love that idea of kids decide what they want to write about. And then I teach mini lessons to help them write what they want to write about. And I've always loved that resource so much. Hashtag, we clearly need to have another webinar series just about writing. All right, folks, as promised, I'm going to close with a few strategies that support engagement related to literacy connected to that opening. So I'm going to reshare my screen. I'm very excited to see this work. How am I not any better at this after 3 years? Here it comes. Feel the excitement. Jeanette, you feel the excitement? Yes. People, trying to share my whole screen. Got it? Rachel, can you see that? Vicki? Yeah. Okay, here we go. So friends, colleagues, and frolics, I know how quickly we have built this relationship over just one webinar. A way to think about this little chart that I'm just anchoring from is that the things that are in the first column are those connecting strategies I was talking about, ways to activate prior knowledge that don't take a lot of time to prepare, but allow students to get into the content and explore, but in a way that's really safe and fun and exploratory. One way to describe it is there's a low floor, everybody can get in, but a high ceiling. You can take it so far in terms of if you're an expert. Then the strategies in the middle are really about helping kids build skills to engage with text or that meaning making. And then that last little column are examples of strategies that you can do fairly quickly or might take a little bit longer. No, I'm not teaching you every one of those strategies today, but let's start with, I know, a taster. It's like a strategy. Remember the book tasting? Strategy tasting. So fun. Friends, I'm going to entertain myself, if not you. So just roll with this humor. I just realized this is being recorded. So people are going to be like, why is he so excited? I don't know. I had a chai. Okay. So peeps in the house, here's one of my favorite strategies that takes about 11 seconds to prepare. I like 11-second strategies, especially as the new season of Survivor is coming. And so one day a week, I'll be just obsessed with that. So in this one, you say, what are 4 things or 4 keywords or concepts related to what we're learning about? I like to have 1 or 2 words that we've already been learning about, and then have 1 or 2 words that are new words that we're going to encounter. And so I put the 4 words up on the board and I ask kids to take their piece of paper and put 1 word in each of the corners. And in the middle, they have to explain how they go together. They can make a diagram, they can write a sentence, they can make a poem. I am open to whatever they want to make. I'd love a diagram though, as Jeanette knows. Like, anyway, how do these go together? What do you think? But what that does is it takes those 4 key concepts and allows them to play with them. And of course, they're not quite sure. How could they possibly know? But what it does is it allows them to be creative and gets them thinking. And you ready for it? They're building a schema. They're already building a schema for what they're about to read or learn about, because isn't that a fun strategy? I think I have an example. Oh, sorry, this is just more of the information. So you give them the 4 words in the middle, they raw or they write or they draw or they diagram how they think the words. They cannot just draw lines between the words, people. But they could draw lines between the words and write on the lines. Oh, friends, such a good strategy. So here's my example. A lot of my examples are in science. So organisms, interactions, ecosystems, and food chains. How do you think these go together? They write some sentences, they make a diagram, whatever this, but what it does is it helps them think about this topic, which is the environment and how the environment works. And it front loads. Do you know that term, everybody? It's kind of like they're already working with the key concepts in a way that's really playful and fun. And then as we read or engage in, we can say, is your hypothesis right? How would you change it? What are you thinking now? Did I mention the low floor, high ceiling? You're giving them the words. So anything they say is okay because they're trying to work with them. And those expert kids who could already teach the lesson, that's our friend Heather, Jeanette, right? You know, Heather being, look what I know everything. It's like, fit it all in there. You get it in there, Heather. Let's go. What's in, or sorry, 4 words. There you go. Can you think of somewhere that you could use 4 words still this week in the chat box? What's something that you're teaching that you could use 4-word strategy with? Yes, people. Do you know what I'm going to ask you next? I'm not letting you off the hook. What would your 4 words be? Come on, give it to me. What would your 4 words be? Yes, you're welcome. I just helped you plan a lesson. I'm here for you peeps. All right. Now, one that I didn't put in the slides, which is just such an easy go-to, is 3, 2, 1. What are 3 things you already know about fractions? What are 3 things you already know about the forest? What are 3 things you already know about your novel? You with me? What are 2 wonderings? What are 2 things that you wonder about fractions? What are 2 things that you wonder about forests? What are 2 things that you wonder about your novel? What are 2 things that you wonder about war or revolution? And here we go. What's one thing? What's one thing that you think we're going to find out today? It's like it's like a prediction. What's one thing? So it's 3 things you know, 2 things you wonder, 1 prediction. See that? But why do we do this? It starts from the kids and their thinking and what they know instead of starting from us and what we know. Does that make sense? It engages them, helps them have some ownership, and builds some engagement. You love it? 3, 2, 1. Back in the 80s, we used to do 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It took too long. So now we're down to 3, 2, 1. We were 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, then we were 5, 3, 1. Now we're 3, 2, 1. You could do this orally, everybody. It doesn't have to be done with writing. You could just with your partner. But what it is this strategy is partner work opportunity, right? What do you think? What did you and your partner think? And if you're going to up it a level, if Rachel and Jeanette were partners, Rachel would say, Jeanette's cool idea was this. And Jeanette would say, Rachel's cool idea was that. So that kind of ups the listening to each other and allows them to not just share what they know, but find out what their partner knows. You're welcome. I'm here for you all day. And by all day, I mean 17 more minutes. Here we go. I love this one. It takes a little bit more prep. It's called What's In, What's Out. It involves tricking children. I love tricking children in appropriate ways. So it helps the kids have to use their background knowledge. And what you do is you make a collection of 12 to 15 terms, and some of the words are in the text, some of the words are not in the text, and some of the words you're not quite sure. And so it allows them to kind of guess and figure out and have to come up with, you ready for it? Bum, 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 a hypothesis. So here's the next slide. Here it comes. So it's good to use a piece of text that has the concepts in it. I love an article, everybody. If you know me, I love Newsella, Newsela, Newsella, because I can type in and get 3 or 4 articles on a term I want. Vicki, can you put Newsella in the chat box for me? Just the name. And so I've got my article. I might find, a magazine on that topic. I also love National Geographic for Kids. That's online. I also like Maclean's magazine is online. I can get a little article from Maclean's magazine. But what I do is I go and then I choose 12 to 15 words. Some are in, some are out. And if you want, you can focus on an image. I find not using an image can be helpful though too. It's more tricky. Here we go. I do give the students the title of the article. That'll help them make their prediction, right? So I give them the title. Folks who are working with like a chapter in a novel, I think what you want to do is kind of like be like working from the previous one. Thanks, Vicki. Great. And then depending how you want to do it, I write the terms on the board and they put them into columns. Or if you get really excited, you could cut them up, right? And they could move them around in terms of what's in, what's out. Okay, here comes the example. Are you ready? Are you excited? I know you are. Here we go. So here's our title of our article, Crime Solving Scientists. So we're going to read this article. You know this one, Jeanette? Okay, pretend you don't. Here we go. So, friends, I'm going to read you the words, and then if you're with a partner, you decide which ones are in, which ones are out. I'm going to ask you to just do independent. So here we go. Arsenic, Sherlock Holmes, DNA, internet, genetic, bloodhound, lab coat, forensic, hair, finger painting, fingerprinting, gastroenteritis, milk, homicide, exhumed, and technologies. Okay, ready in the chat box? Give me 2 or 3 words that you think are definitely in the article. What are 2 or 3 words you think are definitely in the article? Type it in the chat box for me. 2 or 3 of those words you think will definitely in. There we go. Thanks, Jared. I'm just going to do some fingerprinting. Tara thinks Sherlock Holmes is totally in. Oh, it's Taya. Hey, Taya. Okay, you ready? So now, here's what I want to tell me. Give me one term you think is not in, and tell me why you think it's not in the chat box. One term you think is not in, and why. I know you have to really work your typing skills, everybody. Sorry. We won't be judging your spelling. Thanks, Angela. Oh, the poor bloodhound. Don't think the bloodhound really fits with the rest of the words. Milk, because it doesn't really make you think of CSI. Good, Rachel. Nobody wants an upset stomach. Amazing, people. You are middle years learners. Yes, you are. So what's great about this? Yeah, great. Oh, that lab coat might be too obvious. Good, people. So what I do is I do have kids in partners for this, right, everybody? So with their partners, they decide which ones are in, which ones are out, which ones are maybe. It's helping them build a schema, right? It's helping them think about what could this be about? And they're wrestling with vocabulary, right? And they're thinking, what could it be and how it relate together? Usually when kids share out, they'll say things like, okay, if this one's in, then that one's out. If this one's out, does that make sense? Then that one's out. So they're coming up with multiple theories. And they don't know yet, unless you're Taya and Jeanette and I've done this strategy with you before, and good work not revealing everything right away. But what it does is it really helps kids talk with each other, discuss the ideas, it's like 4 words, same idea, but it gives you a chance to play with the vocabulary in a way that helps them own it. And then as you read the article, they're like, shut up, you're kidding me. It's out. They get angry, they yell at me. I'm okay with that. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to tell you just for the sake of telling you, people. Here we go. So arsenic is, what do you think, in or out, people? Arsenic is arsenic. Somebody give me something on your mic or the chat box. Come on, in or out? In, out, in, out, in, out. This is great. It's in, people. It's in. Sherlock Holmes, in or out? Karen Appleton, Rachel Beeson. Poor Sherlock. In. Jared says in. He's out, people. Okay, DNA. It was in. Yeah. Internet. Internet was out. Genetic. Yeah. Usually if DNA's in, right, genetics in. They kind of go together. Bloodhound. Bloodhound. Sean Powell's in now. He's into this. Yeah, you're right, Sean. The bloodhound's out. So sorry. Sorry, Karen. Lab coat. Lab coat would make, they're probably wearing lab coats, but it wasn't in the article. Yeah. Forensic. Yeah, in, right? Because they're using forensic evidence. Hair. Hair. Why in, people? Why in? I'm watching the chat box. I can't wait to see someone answer me or use the mic, whatever you want. Oh, yeah, forensic evidence. Yeah, you can find it in hair. Great. Fingerprinting is out, everybody. Gastroenteritis? Gastroenteritis? I can't even say it. Gastroenteritis? It's in. It's in. Gastroenteritis is in. If gastroenteritis is in, what else do you think is in? Yeah, I know, Karen. Gastroenteritis is in. If gastroenteritis is in, milk is all. Isn't that cool, everybody? If this is there, then this is here. But if this is not, see how we're helping kids, right? Hypothesize and wonder and think. People, this is vocabulary 101. Maybe it's like 201. Homicide. Totally in. Exhumed. You know, I know, like, could it be in? Could it be out? It's in. And then technologies, good. Evo or Berg. Yeah, technologies is in because they use. So here's what, as we read the article, what we found out was that they exhumed Napoleon's body and they tested his hair. And they found what? Well, I guess two things. They confirmed it was Napoleon based on his
DNA.
DNA, good. But they also figured out that he had been poisoned with
Arsenic.
arsenic in his
Milk.
milk. But they thought he had gastroenteritis, but it wasn't gastroenteritis. It was poison in the milk, but they only found it out. Come on, people, isn't that cool? And so by doing that pre-work with the students, like, what do you think? What are the terms? What do you think is going on? As we read, we're so engaged with the vocabulary and we're making meaning. That's our theme, right? As we read, we're making meaning. What do you think is going on? Isn't that fun? It really helps us think about, before we get to the text, what can we do before we get to the text, where students have some power and some ideas and some creativity. And then once we're in the text, we're like, it's here, it's not, get out, shut up. I have to also tell you, it's also great with a small section around mitosis and meiosis, which is so hard to pick up. But if you play with the language ahead of time and then you go in, you're like, oh, that's what that is. It really helps students be meaning makers. Okay. This is perfect, Karen, for a read aloud. It's perfect for murder mystery. Literally, it's perfect for any adolescent novel. Because on page 99, it turns out the mother is still alive. Or that, the boy has fallen out of love with Stargirl. Or like, it's a really good way, everybody, to be, yeah, Vicki, sorry.
But no, that's my favorite book of all time. It's the most read book I have. Sorry. You
Well,
didn't
there's
give it
also
away.
the Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime. Also, like, what's so nice about this is, what do you think is going to happen? Here are some key terms. But so often we assume that kids are just going to pick up the language from what we read. We need to do something beforehand where we play with the language, which are ideas, so that when we go in, we really make sense. Okay, peeps. So coming to the close, there's just some more details. As you read the article, stop 2 or 3 times. What do we know now? What's changed in your thinking? What do we figure out? So that kids can think about what their predictions are and what's going on based on new information they get. Students can change their words around, talk about what's happened, but then look at the debrief you can do. What helped you most in figuring out your words and predictions? What did you learn most about a word, one of those words that you didn't know? And how did thinking about the words before you read help you understand what you read? So that's that metacognitive piece where it helps us understand that working with language is important. I do want to say that this works great for nonfiction and for fiction in multiple subject areas. All right, my last one is actually personalizing strategy or a transforming strategy. Now, you could use this strategy before you read as a connecting strategy by giving kids 10 or 12 words and they have to make sentences out of them. And you could use it after you've read to say, now that we've read, make sentences out of these words to show what we've learned from what we've got. So if we read it beforehand, you'd make sentences like, Leyton won the championship title as a member of his high school baseball team. Ooh, that was like 4 words. But what we're trying to do is get again kids to use terms. But what's so nice about Connect 2 is they're just building sentences out of what they read. But what that helps them do is it helps our students work with language in a really productive way. It doesn't take too long. If you've got a class of learners that are not super excited about writing, I'm sure there must be 2 or 3 of you out there. You can do this orally without writing. You can just say your sentences and share out. But what it again does is either going in, you're predicting, but what's also really nice, it's a really nice one coming out. So Vicki talked about exit slips. We talked about quick writes. Here's another way at the end that's a pretty good way to just like, here's what I learned. And you make sentences coming out of those key terms. And are you ready for it, Rachel? After you've done this strategy 2 or 3 times, the students will start picking the words themselves. This needs to be on our word list. This is something we need to use for the sentences. This is what we've got for the Connect 2. But what it does is it helps students demonstrate their understanding of what they read using key vocabulary, which we forget as adults. I know you're all younger than me out there, but the longer we teach, the more expert we are. But our learners are still encountering the language for the first time. And so it really helps us focus on key terms, important language, and giving them a chance to use the language in creative ways, but connect to meaning making and understanding. Okay, peeps, we're about to close. We're hoping that you had some meaningful opportunities today to do some learning. Embedded in what I was doing were opportunities to use strategies, word strategies, but also opportunities to like make meaning and comprehend and make inferences. But also we head towards opportunities to say, why is this important? Or why do I think that? Why do I think arsenic is in there? But we need all 3. We need to build kids' use of strategies, their word work skills, right? They're really that level. We also need to work with like, what's the idea here? What's the main idea? What's going on? But they also need chances to kind of say, how does what we've learned relate to this new thing? Or how is this stuff important or useful in terms of what we've got? We love that you came and hung out. We realize lots of people are going to watch the video afterwards. It will be posted on the Edith Landau website, but anybody who it'll be sent to you by email as a link as well. Vicki, I'm passing the torch back to you.